You are listening to the William Gomes Podcast. I'm William Gomes and I'm grateful to have you here. Today, I want to talk about something that sits quietly at the heart of autistic identity: language, not spoken language, although that is part of it, but the language we use to describe autism itself, the words, the labels, and the terms that shape how autistic people are seen and how they come to see themselves. Words matter. They carry weight, they can lift someone up or diminish them. And when it comes to autism, the language we choose can either support dignity or reinforce stigma. For many years, autism was spoken about in a way that placed distance between the person and their identity. Terms like person with autism or children who suffer from autism were common. These phrases were rooted in the belief that autism was a burden, an illness, or something separate from the individual, something that could be removed or corrected. But over time, autistic people began challenging this narrative. They asked for language that reflected their lived reality, their pride, and their sense of self. This led to a shift toward identity first language, autistic person. Many autistic individuals prefer this term because autism is not detachable. It shapes how they think, feel, sense, and connect. It influences their creativity, their strengths, and their challenges. Saying autistic person acknowledges that autism is part of who they are, not an add on. For them, it reflects authenticity and acceptance. It is a statement of belonging, not deficiency. However, not all autistic people use identity first language. Some prefer person first language, person with autism. They feel it centers their humanity first before their diagnosis. Others might use both depending on context. What this teaches us is that language is personal. There is no single correct term for everyone. The most respectful approach is to ask, to listen, and to honor each individual's preference. Beyond identity labels, there are other terms that shape understanding. Words like high functioning or low functioning have long been used to describe support needs. But these terms are misleading and often harmful. They oversimplify a complex reality. Someone labeled high functioning might speak fluently but struggle with sensory overload, anxiety, or daily living skills. Someone described as low functioning might have limited spoken language but possess remarkable insight, creativity, or emotional intelligence. Functioning labels flatten people into categories that hide both their strengths and their challenges. Another area where language matters is in describing autistic behavior. Terms like challenging behavior, rigid, defiant, or non compliant are often used without considering the underlying experience. These words frame autistic responses as problems to be fixed rather than signals to be understood. Reframing behavior as communication, as a response to overwhelm, uncertainty, or difficulty, invites compassion instead of judgment. The language of interventions also deserves reflection. Words like treatment, cure, or recovery suggest that autism is something to eliminate. This perspective does not reflect the views of many autistic people who see their neurology as central to their identity. They may want support, adaptation, and understanding, but not erasure. Language that emphasizes support, access, and well being aligns more closely with their lived experience. Language shapes policy as well. How schools, healthcare providers, and government talk about autism influences the resources offered, the support available, and the assumptions built into systems. When language frames autism as a deficit, support becomes about correction. When language frames autism as difference, support becomes about adaptation and inclusion. At the heart of all this is the simple truth that words carry power. They shape the stories we tell about autism, stories of limitation or stories of diversity and resilience. They shape how autistic children understand themselves. They shape how families feel when they receive a diagnosis. They shape how society responds to autistic adults navigating work, relationships, and community life. When we choose language with care, we create a space for pride, agency, and belonging. We acknowledge that autism is not a tragedy, it is a way of being, a way of sensing the world deeply, a way of processing information differently, a way of moving through life with honesty, intensity, and creativity. Language cannot fully capture the richness of autistic experience, but it can help us move closer to understanding. It can help us build bridges instead of barriers, and it can help autistic people feel valued, respected, and seen for who they are, not for who the world expects them to be. In the next episode, we will explore how gender influences autistic development and why so many autistic girls, women, and non binary people have been overlooked for decades. But for now, I hope this conversation encourages you to pause and consider the words you choose. They matter more than we often realize. Thank you for listening. This is the William Gomes Podcast. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and I will speak with you again soon.